I mean, at this point, what even is a Quicksilver? Episode begins right away as we get an opening very reminiscent of Malcolm in the Middle, to usher us into the late 90s, early 2000s era as Billy and Tommy zip around the house with a handheld camera. One interesting thing to note is as they pass Agnes, if you slow down the shot, her pants read naughty. Could this be a nod to her true intentions? Anyway, Billy talks into the camera as we see he's in a homemade version of his classic Wiccan costume from the comics. Do Billy and Tommy know they are in a TV show? Or is this simply a nod to Malcolm doing the same thing in the sitcom Malcolm in the Middle? We see that Uncle Pietro has spent the night, and there's a ton to unpack about Pietro this episode. One thing of note is that his speed is represented the same way as Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver, with the silver and blue whooshes, as opposed to the way it was represented in the Fox universe. Wanda descends the staircase in her classic Scarlet Witch costume from the comics, and she tells the kids that she is a Sokovian fortune teller for Halloween, as the Vision follows in his Mexican wrestler outfit, which of course is a nod to his classic look from the comics. What is evident is that there is some distance between the unusual couple, as Vision is still aware of the events that transpired the day before. Vision wishes his family well as he volunteered to be on patrol with the neighborhood watch tonight, and this upsets Wanda, because this is the first Halloween with the kids and she expected him to be there. What I find interesting is that as the decades in the show move forward, the distance between Wanda and Vision grows, almost as if they are symbolizing the change in the family structure that happens from the 1950s into the 2000s, where divorce rates grow increasingly and single parenthood was on the rise. Pietro volunteers to take Vision's place, and he speeds off to get him and Tommy costumes, returning with both of them sporting a version of his classic Quicksilver costume, which is a nod to Tommy's future Speed costume as a young Avenger. A bit earlier, Pietro mentions a past Halloween from their youth, where him and Wanda appear to be a poor man's version of Nick Fury and Black Widow, but this could also just be two really bad costumes that I have no clue what they are, and Wanda remarks that she remembers that differently, with her still being unsure of this version of Pietro. Back outside the breach, Monica is furious with Hayward for sending that missile at Wanda last episode, as she, Darcy, and Wu try to defend Wanda and make a case that they should be trying to help her instead of harm her. Hayward brings up Monica's history with Carol Danvers and says that she is a little bit too protective of superpowered humans, and has the three best friends kicked off the sword base. The Hayward sketch meter at this point is at an all-time high as he continues to make himself look more nefarious as the series continues. But luckily, Wu and Monica take down their sword escorts, and with Darcy, they make their way back into the sword base. Back in Wanda World, we hit the streets for some trick-or-treating, as Pietro tells the kids to unleash hell, demon spawn, which is a bit on-the-nose wordplay. In the comics, Tommy and Billy were made from soul fragments of Mephisto. Is this a sign of things to come? And if so, how does Quicksilver know all of this? I mean, Wanda continues to test Pietro's memories to see if this is really him, as they both acknowledge the fact that this Pietro does look different. What is just as weird is the fact that this Pietro also acts different. He acts in a way that is 100% linked to Evan Peters' performance as Quicksilver in the X-Men films. He doesn't act like Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver, and he doesn't even have the same personality as the Quicksilver of the comics. It's very much the same personality that he's been portraying since Days of Future Past in the X-Men films. He also mentions Shangri-La, which does actually exist in the Marvel Universe, but I doubt it has any relevance here. And there is a fun little reference to the film Kick-Ass, which does feature both Aaron Taylor Johnson and Evan Peters. Wanda runs into Herb, and he reveals that Vision is actually not on patrol tonight, and he nervously asks Wanda if there is anything he can do before jumping back into character and walking off. It's from here that we learn Vision's true purpose, to explore the outer parts of Westview to get help. We see him stop in front of a house, and there's a woman slowly putting up the same decoration over and over again, as a single tear streams down her eye. It appears that the farther the people are from Wanda, the less active they become, as they're merely puppets without a puppeteer. And it makes this whole situation a lot more troubling because these people are lifeless. I mean, as if things weren't dark enough at this point, we're presented with the episode's commercial for Yo Magic Yogurt. And if we are continuing to go in chronological order of Wanda's trauma, this may very well have something to do with her time being imprisoned on the raft in Civil War. I mean, she is trapped there without the ability to use her powers, and she's unable to escape, basically starving to death in a way, because she isn't able to use her magic. She's only able to escape thanks to Steve Rogers being able to rescue her. Back in the show, we see a marquee for a theater playing The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. The Incredibles is obviously a film about a superpowered family living in suburbia trying to hide their identities. And The Parent Trap is a film about twins who try to bring their parents back together. Family with powers and twins being important parts of this episode, as it is here that we see Tommy access his speed for the first time. Wanda warns the kids not to go past Ellis Avenue, and we are led to assume that this is where the hex ends. I would actually find it hilarious if the Incredibles mention is actually a nod foreshadowing the Fantastic Four, because everyone always considers it the best Fantastic Four movie. It is during this time that Wanda also continues to grill Quicksilver, as he tells her that he remembers dying in the streets of Sokovia. And the next thing he remembers is her voice calling to him, and he knew that she needed him. Anyway, in the real world, Team 3 best friends break into a sword tent so that Darcy can hack into their network, and they find out that Hayward has been tracking Vision this entire time, and is able to locate him and all the people in his vicinity. This takes us back to Vision, as he is so disturbed by the lifelessness of the people, he decides to fly up and survey the area, only to discover a single car with its lights on, and it's everyone's favorite neighbor, Agnes. Now this whole scene is strange, because while everyone else is lifeless, Agnes was able to make it all the way to the edge and is still able to speak somehow. Vision wakes her, and she pleads with him to help them, and blames all of this on Wanda. Straight up, says the word Wanda, saying that he is Vision of the Avengers. But Vision has no idea who the Avengers even are, and he can't really remember anything before Westview. Agnes then tells him he's supposed to be dead, as she gives us a cackle, and Vision puts her back under. She also mentions that Wanda won't even let them think of leaving, which is a lie, isn't it? Because we see in episode 3 that Dr. Nielsen was very much thinking about leaving, and he was ready to go on vacation to Bermuda. He was just physically unable to. I mean, let's be real, this whole scene is off, man. First of all, Agnes says she took the wrong turn and got lost, and Vision questions how that is possible in the town she grew up in. Also, she's dressed as a witch, and in this episode, all the main characters, especially the ones in the opening, are dressed as their true self. Plus, Agnes was parked perfectly at the edge of the hex, almost as if her car lights were a beacon leading Vision to the edge of the hex, almost daring him to walk out, knowing full well that he will, and knowing full well that Wanda would expand the hex to save him. Was this her true intention? Or is all of this Agatha Harkness bait just Marvel trying to pull the wool over our eyes to create a twist of Trevor Slattery levels? Back with the best buddy squad, Darcy finds Monica's blood test and informs her that she cannot go back into the hex because her 2 visits changed her cells on a molecular level. AKA, she's definitely going to get her powers by the end of the series. Wu and Monica do leave to meet Rambo's contact, but Darcy elects to stay in order to unlock more files. Monica does refer to her contact as a guy this time, so it makes the possibility of it being Reed Richards that much more likely, but at this point it could really be anyone. Pietro and Wanda have a talk, and he tells Wanda that he loves Westview. It's a hell of a place. He questions her about where she's been keeping all the kids, and it's here that I want to mention that in this episode there are kids all over the place, where in last episode, the Vision remarked that there were no kids in Westview except Tommy and Billy, almost as if someone or something responded to this comment directly. He inquires that they've been sleeping this entire time in their beds to help them avoid the trauma. He also applauds her on handling the moral aspect of all of this so well. All of the families and couples have stayed together, everyone's personalities are similar, who they really are, and everyone's jobs are better. But how does Pietro know all of this? And it's here where I have another major red flag. What about Dottie? We have not seen her since episode 3, and that was just briefly, and we know she is yet to be identified, but her husband has, and his name is Harold Proctor, so wouldn't she be easy to identify if that's the case, and she's his spouse? Is it possible that Dottie is really Agatha Harkness? Or the real big bad of the show? Or at the very least, could she be working with Agnes, maybe as part of a coven of sorts? Pietro exclaims that he's impressed with what Wanda has done, but Wanda reveals that she has no memory of how the hex happened. She just remembers feeling alone and emptiness. She turns and we get another jump scare of a dead Pietro.
You didn't see that coming?
But he has the wounds of the MCU Pietro, so is Wanda manifesting these visions, or is someone manipulating her emotions? Because this Pietro's body never inflicted those wounds, so how could she be seeing them on him? We jump back to Darcy and she finds a file named Cataract, a classified weapons intel file that is top secret for Hayward's eyes only, cataract being a lens on the eye that leads into a decrease in vision. So obviously this file has something to do with Vision. I mean, in that video from last week, we never do see Wanda take Vision's corpse. So is it possible she never did? That Hayward is the one that made a deal with someone or something and gave them Vision's body? Is SWORD trying to create sentient weapons using Wanda? Is Hayward the real big bad? At this moment, Vision breaks out of the hex and starts pulling him back, tearing him apart as it does. What is interesting here is that Vision does not die instantly upon leaving, and the Mind Stone is actually still present on his head as he exits. Darcy attempts to help him as Hayward and the SWORD agents just look on, waiting for Vision to die. Darcy gets handcuffed to a truck for her efforts, Vision collapses, and his body takes the same shape as Quicksilver upon his death. In this time, Billy's powers awaken as his telekinesis hears Vision's cries as he goes to tell his mother. Wanda is nervous, but Pietro jokes that her dead husband can't die twice, right? And Wanda blasts him, potentially realizing that he may not be her brother after all. Wanda freezes the town as she expands the hex, and it appears she has full control over everything. As the hex expands, it sucks in Darcy and the SWORD base, turning it into a circus, and the majority of the agents into clowns, potentially a subconscious dig by Wanda to how she really views all the people at SWORD. The only people to make it out are Hayward, 2 SWORD agents, Monica, and Wu. And the episode ends as Wanda's red eyes fade to normal. I mean, this episode leaves us with more questions than ever. Who is Hayward? And what is his real agenda? Is he trying to create sentient weapons? Is he trying to bring back Ultron? What is going on with Agnes and Dottie? Are they Coven of Witches? Is one of them Agatha Harkness? Is anybody Agatha Harkness at this point? We also have the Pietro problem. Is it possible that Pietro is sent into the hex to gather information for a certain doctor? That's very strange. Who's trying to help Wanda by sending in a Pietro from another universe? I mean, he is the Sorcerer Supreme, and he does have knowledge of the multiverse. It'd be very easy for him to pluck a Pietro from a different universe and send them in there to help gather information to help Wanda. Or is this Pietro Mephisto, or another villain, who injected himself into the narrative to try and control Wanda? We did get a lot of references to Hell this episode, but at this point it's still up in the air whether Mephisto is going to show up or not. I have a feeling he is, but it could be anything at this point. All I know is I will be watching next week. So, if you like this and you want more content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, catch you later.